Today on Light of the Word with Pastor Ray.
Literally, the longer you hold it and the more muscle tension that you got, the more you're going to start to shake. And you got maybe 30 seconds to take this shot. So you can't draw your bow early and wait. You have to draw your bow timely, and your arms start to shake and those type of things. And what the Lord is speaking here, it's just a beautiful picture. God came around and he strengthened and steadied Joseph's arm. He helped hold that string. He helped hold that bow.
Open your heart to us, Lord, so we can know your word. We come before you, Jesus. Speak to our hearts as we discover your love for us. How wide, how deep, how far. Pour into us so we can learn to follow. One surrender at a time. You have made the way for us to know you, a path that's straight and right. By the light of the word.
Many times we see what God has placed in our lives but fail to use it at the right time. Whether it is gifts, talents, or opportunities, God has entrusted us with things meant for His glory. Yet we often give up too quickly or hold on when we should move forward. That's why Pastor Ray wants you to know that when you feel tired or uncertain about what to do next, you can place your faith in Jesus Christ. Trust in His timing, knowing that He works all things together for a purpose and that He will guide you. Well, let's join Pastor Ray in the book of Genesis chapter 49 for today's edition of Light of the Word.
Look at Issachar and where they ended up. They ended up in this place called the Valley of Megiddo. It was the breadbasket of Israel, still is today. Interestingly, this is where the final battle of the world will end, according to the book of Revelation. It's interesting because it's the landmass between Asia and Europe, and they'll meet in this perfect place for this battle. I can't remember who it was. Was it Napoleon? He dreamt this would be the place that he would get the fight. He said it's the perfect place for war, and surely it will be there as we look at the end times. And then we move on to verse 16 and 17 as we look at Dan. Dan shall judge his people as one of the tribes of Israel. Here he is speaking prophetically. Dan shall be a serpent by the way, a viper by the path that bites the horse's heels so that its riders shall fall backward. The first great judge that's known to come through the tribe of Dan is Samson, so we know that. But it says it will be a serpent by the way, a viper by the path, and Dan will be the one who introduces idolatry into Israel. And it will be the price that they will pay for that as we look at that in Judges 18. Then the children of Dan set for themselves the carved image, and Jonathan, the son of Gershom, the son of Manasseh, and his sons were priests to the tribe of Dan until the day of captivity. All the way to the north, they set up their own priesthood. They introduced this idol worship, and they'll be one of the first to fall whenever the Assyrians come. And it's interesting to me as you look at this, and you see in Revelation 7 that Dan is left out of the lineage there in the book of Revelation. Could it be because of their idolatry and or whatnot? But here's what, once again, in Ezekiel, the last 10 chapters of Ezekiel 48 specifically, now these are the names of the tribes from the northern border along the road to Hethan and the entrance of Hamath, to Hazar Anah, the border of Damascus. We know where that's, Syria. Northward in the direction of Hamath, there shall be one section for Dan from its east to its west side. By the border of Dan from the east side to the west, one section for Asher. And it's amazing, the last 10 chapters of the book of Ezekiel speak of the millennial kingdom, when God sets his kingdom up here on earth. And the beautiful point that we see here is that God brings Dan back in to the lineage, back into the land, gives them a piece of the land. And what is it, once again, is the continual grace of God. All these things that we're reading, all their failings, and yet if we look and spend time on each and every one of them, we just find this continual grace of God coming back in. And I just say before I move on to that, and well, it ties in perfectly with verse 18. It says, Jacob, if you look at that, I have waited for your salvation, O Lord. This has nothing to do with Dan. It has nothing to do with Gad in the next verse. It has nothing to do with Reuben, Simeon, Levi. None of these that we've read. It's Jacob, just in the middle of speaking these things, just finding himself coming into the place of praise. Oh, I've waited for your salvation, O Lord. And what he's speaking to his sons, but he's reflecting on his own life. All these things, all my failings, all my scheming, that's what he's known for, the conniver, the schemer, and all these things. And yet, Lord, you've been faithful. You've been faithful to this whole thing. You've never given up on me. You've brought me into this wonderful place of salvation. You could have, should have, threw me away all these years ago, all these doubts that I have and all the things that I did that were just like my boys, and the faults and the failings that I have here. And yet in the middle, he just breaks through, and it's a word for us. He's so gracious. I've waited for your salvation. In Psalm 16, 10 and 11, for you will not leave my soul in Sheol, that's a word for hell, nor will you allow your Holy One to see corruption. This is the prophetic picture of Jesus, but it's a word as well for application to us. You will show me the path of life. In your presence is fullness of joy. At your right hand are pleasures forevermore. Jacob saying, I'm in the presence. I waited for the Lord, and he showed up and showed himself to me, and I can sit in the fullness of joy, even in my days of dying, the last days of my life. And we always just keep coming back to this for the last weeks that we've been studying the life of Jacob and Joseph as well. Don't quit. Anybody here and you're thinking of quitting? I'm done. I'm just done. This is too hard. Following Jesus is too hard. This walk of faith is too hard. It's just easier I'm not going to renounce my faith by any means. I still believe, but I just can't live this and walk this out. It's just too hard to do these type of things. And all I can say is come into his presence. Don't try to wrestle it. Don't try to fight it. Don't try to say, I'll do these 10 things. All you got to do is just come into his presence, and you'll find the fullness of joy. And he'll take you and he'll move you on from there. Jacob, whatever his thing was, he still stayed in this presence of the Lord. And God did what only God can do. And he brought Jacob through all these things that now he has his family together. He gets to speak a prophetic word. And it's just a beautiful picture for all of us. And I just can't say it enough. Just don't quit, no matter what. I know it's hard. Just don't quit. Verse 19, as we look at Gad, a troop shall tramp upon him, but he shall triumph at last. Well, they are known. That's who they get known for as we look at them, especially 1 Chronicles 5 through 8. They become warriors and they become fighters. We're going to see that with Naphtali and Benjamin, just fierce warriors. And so not only is there a word for us through here, don't quit, but Christian, listen, stay in the fight. We need to fight for one another. We need to stay in this fight. We need to go fight for the kids at the school. We need to go fight for our brothers and sisters in Nepal and around the world and in our homes and all these type of things. And there's this place that God recognizes the warrior that's in us. And then there's a place for us in 2 Timothy 3:4. You therefore must endure hardship as a good soldier of Jesus Christ. No one engaged in warfare entangles himself with the affairs of this life, that he may please him who enlisted him as a soldier. Israel knows one thing, still to this day, war. They know nothing else but war. They wouldn't know peace for extended period of time in their whole history. And I think there's a correlation for us as 2 Timothy gives us a call. We're going to fight this to the end. Big misconception to think that we should have a life of ease and prosperity and that the devil's not going to come and go for a fight. And we'll talk more about that in just 1 second as we look at Joseph. But verse 20 says, bread from Asher shall be rich, and he shall yield royal dainties. Pretty interesting as we see the Asher plugged between here and then the next one, Naphtali, as we look at Gad and Naphtali. And here you have these gifts. Hey, you got these guys that fight, but here's Asher. They come and they bring this refreshment, these royal dainties and bread, because, when we go to war, somebody needs to stay behind and provide for the soldiers. And we have military people here today, I see. God bless you. Thank you for your service. May you know we recognize the risk that you take. I don't care how great the weaponry you may have. There's still always an inert risk. There's always the battle that surrounds. And we have people that go to war, but then we have people who stay behind and prepare, provide, supply. And that's what we see here with our military. Those who don't just go to the front line, they go behind the front line, they go deep into enemy territory, but someone was behind them all the while preparing. Here's your weapon, here's your transportation, here is the battle plan, here's the intel, here's the supply, and all these types, so you can go in and you can come home. And everything that we see there in today's military war is the same in our spiritual war. Anyone who's going to go anywhere, and I thank you, I knew I could not go into Nepal and come out of Nepal without the prayer coverage that I had. And we won't go into the public school and come out of this public school without the prayer coverage. Any of you who are involved in these type of ministries, and even the ministries here in the church that we know, there's those behind who are providing, in the case of Asher, baked goods and dainties to supply the warriors. And because verse 21 says, speaking of Naphtali, as a deer let loose, he uses beautiful words. And once again in Judges, we see them, Judges chapter 4, the military prowess that they had. Well, now we move on to verse 22 as we speak of Joseph. And what a picture there, as Joseph is a fruitful burrow by a well. His branches run over the wall. And this is an amazing, again, it's 400 years. It's 400 years of slavery before we see all this coming to pass with Joseph and these type of things. And great leaders are going to come out of the line of Joseph. Did I give the cross reference? Yes. Hebrews 11. Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, David, Samuel. Speaking of the Hall of Faith, the leaders that came out from Joseph were Gideon, Jephthah, Joshua, Deborah, and Samuel. That's amazing. Just through this one son. But not until 400 years of slavery was over. Not till then 400 years of judges would come and they'd go in and the life of these judges. And he can prophesy these things. Because you know why? It's a word, same for us. Because God's going to see it through. God's going to see you through. God's going to bring this victory for us. And it brings me to just a thought and an encouragement for us as we look at these things of Joseph being a fruitful burrow by a well, verse 22. His branches run over the wall. Makes me think of Psalm 1. Just a word for us. Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the ungodly, nor stands in the path of sinners, nor sits in the seat of the scornful. But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and in his law he meditates day and night. He shall be like a tree planted by the rivers of water that brings forth its fruit in its season, whose leaf also shall not wither, and whatever he does, he shall prosper. You know, the great well that we have is none other than Jesus. John 4, as we speak of that. If you knew the gift of God and who it was, it says, give me drink, you would have asked, and he would have given you living water. And the woman said, sir, I have nothing to draw from. The well is deep. Where do I get this living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us this well and drank from it himself as well as sons and his livestock? And Jesus answered and said to her, whoever drinks of this water shall thirst again. Whoever drinks of the water that I shall give him shall never thirst. But the water that I shall give him will become in him a fountain of water springing up into everlasting life. And oh, the power and the beauty that we get. We just need to rest in the Lord. Draw from the well the living water and say, Lord, I'm just going to sit in your presence. I don't need to work these things up. All I got to do is just hang with these things, who you are, and tap from the well that you provide, and I'll never thirst again, and I'll be like this Joseph. But here's the amazing thing as we look at that and how beautiful that sounds. But notice in verse 23 and 24, the archers have bitterly grieved him, shot at him, and hated him. But his bow remained in strength, and the arms of his hands were made strong by the hands of the mighty God of Jacob. From there is the shepherd, the stone of Israel. And here it speaks of the arrows that would pierce Joseph, the attacks that would come as we read the life of Joseph, these 13 years in prison, in slavery, and all the attacks that came from his brothers, from these type of things. And listen, the minute you start being fruitful for Jesus Christ in anything, you can be sure the devil's coming with the attack. And sometimes we sit and we just don't understand, and we go, I don't know why I'm going through these type of things. And yet we just have to recognize always, as the war that we're in, the soldiers that we are, in this battle that we fight, and these type of things, the fiery darts that come from the devil, because he has one thing. If you're going to step out and be fruitful and try to do anything in my name, the devil is coming, and he wants to steal, kill, and destroy that. I love this picture of the archer, and what it's saying is Joseph, he would draw his bow for the battle, and his hands were starting to get weak. And anybody that shoots bow, you know, if you go to the target or if you're out in the woods, when you draw your bow, regardless of the type of bow that you get, there's a limitation that you have. You have only a certain amount of time to take your shot, because the longer you hold that at that pressure, and it's like 70 pounds of pressure, your arms start to weak, and you start to literally, the longer you hold it and the more muscle tension that you got, the more you're going to start to shake. And you know, I only got maybe 30 seconds to take this shot. So you can't draw your bow early and wait. You have to draw your bow timely, and your arms start to shake and those type of things. And what the Lord is speaking here, and it's just a beautiful picture. God came around and he strengthened and steadied Joseph's arm. He helped hold that string. He helped hold that bow. And I can remember it was 20-some years ago at least. I remember a season and a time in my life, and I go, Lord, I just don't know if I can hold this anymore. Everything that's coming against me, I think I'm supposed to be doing this. I think this is what you called. I know you called me to do this. I know this is what you, but I think my arms are ready to fail. And it was a picture, and it was that very thing where, and the Lord just gave me a word. It wasn't this word, it's through another passage in my morning devotion that God just gave me this picture of, I'm going to steady your arms. And he gave me literally this word, and it was him holding my arms with his arm and holding the bow. And he says, you can just hang on a little longer because I got your arms. And this is what he speaking of Joseph, and it's a beautiful thing. And then once again, Jacob's making this point to the boys as we read this. It's never too late, boys. What God's done in Joseph, he can do in you, verse 25 and 26 as we wrap. But the God of your fathers who will help you, he's going into a new word, by the Almighty who will bless you with the heaven above, blessing the deep that lies beneath, blessings of the breast of the and of the womb, the blessing of your father have excelled the blessing of my ancestors. Upon the utmost bond of everlasting hills, they shall be on the head of Joseph and on the crown and head of him who separates from his brother. Basically, he's just saying all the blessings to Joseph go on to Ephraim and Manasseh, his sons. And we studied that last week. Well, here we come. The last one is Benjamin, verse 27, and it's going to speak of Benjamin and his warrior proudness. Benjamin is a ravenous wolf. In the morning he shall devour the prey, and at night he shall divide the spoil. And we have various passages here for you note takers. It's all in there speaking of the great warrior that Benjamin would become. They could shoot, they were known they could shoot a bow with left hand or right hand, and just the archer and the slings that they were. And verse 28 through 33 as we close. Just so much in all these passages. All these are the 12 tribes of Israel. And this is what their father spoke to them. And he blessed them. He blessed each one according to his own blessing. So even with the harsh words, he was still giving blessings to all of them. In verse 29, then he charged them and said to them, I am to be gathered to my people. Bury me with my fathers in the cave that is in the field of Ephron the Hittite, in the cave that is in the field of Machpelah, which is before Mamre in the land of Canaan, today Israel, promised land that was given to him even though he's in Egypt, which Abraham bought with the field of Ephron the Hittite as a possession for the burial place. There they buried Abraham and Sarah his wife, and they buried Isaac and Rebekah and his wife, and there I buried Leah. The field and the cave that is there were purchased from the sons of Heth. When Jacob had finished commanding his sons, he drew his feet up into the bed, breathed his last, and was gathered to his people. I just close with such a beautiful passage speaking. There was some application for every one of these sons for us personally, but I love the closing place that we have here with him. He's second, his son, second in the land. And I love it that Jacob could have said, hey, when I die, build me a monument here in Egypt. Let everyone remember that I was Joseph's dad. Let the land remember me, and let people pass by and go, that was the man of the son, the father of the great man, Joseph. Egypt has always been a picture of the world as we read through these scriptures and we look at these type of things. And I just love the picture that we see of Jacob, and we'll see it when we close this book out next week with Joseph. Don't bury me in this world. There ain't nothing in this world that's worth me tagging my life and my identity to.
You have made the way for us to know you, a path that's straight and right. By the light of the world.
What a great word from Pastor Ray Bolus in the book of Genesis, here on Light of the Word. As we continue on this initial book of the Bible, what character do you identify with? Are you relating to Adam and Eve in the garden, wrestling with what God has said but being swayed by the twisted lies of the devil? Perhaps you're being faithful and obedient like Noah amidst a culture that ridicules you for your steadfast faith in God. Have you been like Jacob, being a deceiver so you could get ahead in life? Maybe you feel like Leah, being overlooked for the sake of someone else you're close to. Whatever the case may be, never forget that God sees you. Even with Hagar's example, God encouraged, reminded, and made sure she was aware that he was looking out for her. when no one else seemed to. There's so much more to glean from the book of Genesis. It's so rich, and there's a wealth of wonderful things God wants us to see in His Word. If you're just loving this series, we invite you to check out more teachings at lightoftheword.info. This ministry comes to you from Calvary Chapel, Anne Arundel, and you can find us on Facebook and X. You can also download our mobile app to access these teachings and more. We thank you for listening to Light of the Word, illuminating the heart of God.